Moral Nation. And that is going to be delivered by Dr. Akshay Rath Kumar. It is the privilege to introduce Dr. Rath, who is the associate professor at IIT Bhubaneswar and is specialized in Indian religion and cultural studies. His article and monologues are appear in Kavya Bharati, Journal of Gender Studies, South Asia Research, and many more. His interests include historical texts on the colonial period with special focus on the discourse of criminality. An associate of IIAS Shimla, Rath has completed a major research project sponsored by ICSSR New Delhi, researching the history of convict transportation with the focus on the Andaman panel settlement. His current sponsored research project, Savarkar in Andaman, seeks to reconstruct the relationship of important figures such as Savarkar, Tagore, and Gandhi with the imperial code of law and panel system. He has been visiting scholar of the University of Lewis, USA. His most recent book is The Cross the Black Water, Andaman Archives. With his sharp archival eyes and the thought-provoking insight, Dr. Rath continues to reshape our understanding of colonial justice and resistance. So it is with the great enthusiasm that we welcome him to today's discussion. So over to you now. So please unmute yourselves.
Is it better now? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, sir,
Thank you so much. Allow me to share the PPT. Give me 30 seconds.
Okay, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I also thank Professor Viva Sharma and the Department of English, AMU, for inviting me to this particular GAN program. And as we have seen in the last 2 days, it's been a wonderful program. Thank you so much. The subject that we'll be taking up today would be Gandhian poetics and the making of a moral nation. And this is the way we are proceeding. First, we shall be looking at Gandhi, the nation, and his Bhakti archives. We shall begin with the Bhakti archives. We shall understand how in Gandhian nationalist discourse and in Gandhian nationalist or liberal nationalism, how Bhakti plays a very crucial role in shaping the nation, shaping the people, and also shaping the independent culture of India after independence. In the second part of this historical enterprise, we shall be looking at how Gandhi is appropriating cultural icons, the dead ones, the living ones from history and from also the present, and how he's trying to make a history of their own. So this is where we shall be beginning. Our structure would be, we shall be looking at the Bhakti movement, we shall be looking at the lives and bhajans of Mirabai, and the role Gandhi played in making Mirabai a saint. We shall be looking at the times, the places, and the landscapes associated with Mirabai and also Gandhi, and how he dubbed people, those who were his ardent followers, as Mirabais. We shall also be looking at the Miramais of Vrindavan and other parts of India, the women who live on public charity. We shall be looking at a couple of texts. I'll show you 3 texts in the beginning. Then we shall be starting our lecture. Have a quick look at the bhajan. This particular one is Mira swims free. But do I care for the walls of the word? The name of the dark one has entered my heart. Those who praise, those who blame, those who say I am crazy, wicked, and uncontrolled fire, all ignorant foes caught in their senses. So this is what is a translated text and assumed to have been sung by Mira. The second one is in this category, I am dancing only for my master. This is what Mira is speaking. All I want to is to please him and keep his eyes. The gold chains I wear on my ankles are love for Shyam. My dancing dress is my faithfulness to him. I have stripped of shame and family custom to go to the bed of the dark one. Body and mind, Mira wears only the color of God. So you can see there is this Sufi influence also in this poetry. Though Sufism comes a bit later in this historical enterprise. The third one we shall be looking at is another bhajan, but we shall come to it later. And the bhajans that Gandhi sang, Gandhi wanted his followers to sing, and what he translated, we shall be seeing. This will be our central arguments. But before that, let's see how we are using these terms. The first term that we are using would be religion. The second one, Gandhian literature, Gandhian literary tradition. So Gandhian literature would here mean what Gandhi wrote, what Gandhi translated. Sometimes he mistranslated, sometimes he added new flavors to suit India of the contemporary times, to make people satyagrahis. So we are using these terms, religion, Gandhian literature, Gandhian literary tradition, as a corpus of texts, as an archive on Bhakti literature and thought, and Gandhi's response to them to create a nation that would respond to the nation during colonialism under the British rule and also patriarchal rules. So this particular nation would respond to a nation in distress. We are also using the compositions of Mirabai, and those who are familiar with the text, it's fine, but let's have a very quick introduction. Mirabai is believed to have lived during the 16th century, though there is no direct mention of this in Rajasthani text. She is a Bhakti poet saint who was born in present-day Rajasthan and left this universe in Vrindavan. And it is full of, say, mythology, full of tales. So we shall be looking at it also. So let's have a quick recap on Bhakti archives and the way Mirabai is represented in it, and also the role Gandhi and M.S. Subbalakshmi held in that. There are contentions among scholars uh, that to situate the exact dates of Mirabai's life and her miraculous death. However, it is noted by several historians and also proved that she was married to the heir apparent of Mewar, Chittor in Rajasthan. His name was Bhojraj, and she was married in the year 1516, probably, and she was widowed within 4 to 5 years of her marriage. So it is said that she never consummated her marriage, therefore leaving no heir to the throne of Chittor. It is also stated that she refused to commit sati, saying Krishna is her only husband and she was not married to any mortal, and that she can never become a widow since she was married to Krishna. She also did not engage in worship of any other deity, any other god except Krishna. That's why she was called names, and Mira has been for long a term of abuse in her community. So, two incidents that we read during our school days, they come to our mind. The incidents are on the attempted murder, first by her in-laws, who sent a snake in a basket of flowers, and this basket of flowers with the snake, it miraculously turns into a garland, so she is saved. In another tale, we know that she is served a cup of poison and it turns into nectar. These are mentioned in the hagiographies. Hagiographies are the lives of saints composed after the death of the saints. So she leaves her in-laws' house death threats and sets out to Vrindavan and apparently stays approximately 15 years before settling down at Dwarka in Rajasthan. So in Vrindavan, it is said that she met Jiva Goswami of the Vallabha sect who refused her an audience out of verbal celibacy. Jiva Goswami had taken celibacy to his life and work, and she did not allow her an audience, saying that he also proposed to hold verbal celibacy. And to this particular saint, Mira states that there is only one man in Vrindavan, and that is Krishna. No else is a man in heart. So, this particular tale also comes to our mind when we are speaking about Mira, and we shall be looking at how Gandhi is taking these incidents to his life and work. So, thereafter, people have assumed the persona of Mira, have composed bhajans in her name, thus perpetuating the lyrical tradition of Mira bhajans. Um, and let it be mentioned here that we come to know about these tales, these incidents from the hagiographies, and these hagiographies are earliest known sources on Mirabai's history. In particular, we have Bhaktamal, composed during 1600s. Uh, Bhakti Rasabodhini Tika, approximately 1712, and Pothi Prem Ambodh just prior to the Tika. These are some of the earliest texts which mention that there was a person called Mirabai. Several scholars have worked on Mirabai, and one of the very famous one is Parita Mukta. Parita Mukta states that it's the Gujarati middle class family. They have contributed greatly in preserving Mira's cultural memory through bhajan singing. So there was this great Orientalist work composed during the colonial period, and people started talking about the saints, about the historical characters. And one of the prominent figures in this direction is Lieutenant Colonel James Todd. So the scholarly excavation of Mira's history begins with European Orientalists, those who worked in India, such as Colonel Todd and Major Price, and their work on Rajasthan and its history. They paved ways for different kind of a history, and Indian scholars also started responding to them. So Indian native scholars, when they started responding to them, they started to look for the flaws in Orientalist history, and Mirabai thereafter started becoming a very prominent name in day-to-day activity, though after the intervention of Gandhi, she becomes a household name. So Gandhi dubs three people as Mirabai in his lifetime. First, he dubbed Madeline Slade, who had led a privileged life in pursuit of a learning and service in India. Sarojini Naidu, the poet, and she had promoted women's participation in Indian culture during the freedom struggle movement. And M.S. Subbulakshmi, the singer, Karnataka singer, these three, sorry, these three people were dubbed as Mirabais during Gandhi's interaction with social circle, and they were called Miras during Gandhi's lifetime. There are temples dedicated to Mira in her shrine at Metta, at Chittor, and Jaipur, as well as several places in Vrindavan and Dwarka. There is also a Mirabai museum which has paintings at Metta in Rajasthan. There are women who live on public charity in Vrindavan. They take the name Miramais. They are chiefly widows who live on public charity. They have assumed the role of Mirabai and they sing songs and live on public charity. So this is the introductory part of our argument, and we shall see in a couple of minutes how Indian spokespersons, including Gandhi, they tried to accommodate Mirabai in the Indian nationalist discourse, for which she has been canonized as a saint at this point of time. So let's look at the definitions. Look at the term bhakti. Bhakti is, in literal translation, would be devotion. It's devotion to a personal deity. The Sanskrit term bhakti is derived from bhaj, which means to belong to or to worship. Bhakti marg is the path of devotion against the popular karma marg, the work path, or the jnana marg, which is the knowledge path, and it's believed to be a path of liberation in Hindu theology. And from the perceived imperfect world, this path allows you to become a better human being, giving you liberation. That is what is believed in Hindu pantheon. So the bhakti poet saint who believes in this, she or he submits to a personal deity, and so does the practitioner. It can be so defined as a human divine relationship as experienced from the devotee's side. Bhakti thus would be a movement, and it originated in southern India starting the 7th century. It migrated towards the north starting the 14th century and produced some of the very popular names, including Andal, Lal Ded, and Mirabai during the 15th, 16th, and 17th century. So, what did this movement do to the people, to the nation, to the geographical landscape? What did it do to human relationships? How did and what did it challenge? And how did it establish itself as a movement? This Bhakti movement, propagated by our saints like Mirabai and Lal Ded, it allowed people to form groups who would compose devotional songs and sing them. It also allowed people to forge alliances. It affected the governance system to a significant extent because the poet counseled people and the kings and the politics. So it affected the political landscape also, and they counseled people to embrace a path of life in harmony. So overall, Bhakti, the movement, the poet practitioner, the person who is involved in this preaching would allow people to live in harmony, but we shall see how that is also being distracted slowly. So the movement, the Bhakti movement, also saw the rise of female bhaktas who traveled from one place to another. It means during the 15th century, the poet saint could move from one place to another. And since we have legends that these people traveled a long path, and at this point of time, it would be approximately 1500 kilometers to 5000 kilometers. It means that people could travel when Europe was still not allowing people to travel frequently, particularly women. And unless you had, say, the backing of a king or so. So at this point of time, we would believe that many female bhaktas, they traveled from one place to another. You may state that when women started traveling, either as individuals or in groups, they also challenged the orthodox culture that confined them to the four walls of home. So it's not always true that there were no challenges. So when they forged alliances, they had already gone out of their home and from the home front and created a home outside the four walls of the home. When they started this activity, so praises and challenges must have been the norm for these women travelers or the bhaktas or the saints who might not have been termed bhaktas during this period, might have been castigated by their families, but this whole enterprise allowed women to travel from the home front. So not for nothing that legends that we hear in contemporary times, they make us think about these women saints who abandoned their families abandoned family ties, and took to the path of devotion. And devotion might have been a kind of shield that women used to travel at this point of time. So we are not saying that they were devotional women in the beginning of their scholarship, but slowly the scholarship might have been formed. So, with Mira crossing the familial and aristocratic borders comes a variety of transgressions in both her personal and public sides. First, her aristocratic root it remains because she was a princess, a mendicant. She became a princess. She married to an heir apparent of Chittor, so her aristocratic root would remain with her, it would move with her, but an abandoning identity, it also travels with Mira during her physical and spatial movement. So, with this physical and spatial movement, Mira as an aristocratic woman and Mira as a spiritually inclined bhakta remain identical. They go parallel, but the labels that she is a rebel, that she is a woman of compromising character, they too also do not abandon her for a long time, and it goes into the making of Mira, goes into the making of her being. Secondly, as a widow and as a mendicant who sings and dances in Krishna Bhakti, she is persecuted and also abandoned by her own people. With that, she garners the sympathy and alliance of an audience who are acquainted with the stories of her miracles. See, we had the stories that she survived a garland of snake, which became a garland of flowers. She survived the poison given by her in-law. So the tales of miracles also travel with her. When Mira shuns her privilege, she enters the public domain of common people and negotiates with public through her bhajans. And possibly the third one would be she is protected by accommodating a male god, in this case Krishna, and the tales of the miracles that enter the public domain. So the protection comes from accommodating a male and the tales of miracles which travel with her. So the mechanism of this public sphere thus created not only safeguards her chastity but also defies it. So we shall see that the Mirabai who challenged these few social norms but remained instrumental in becoming a bhakta, that Mirabai particularly held special reverence in Gandhi's imagination. Now, why are we bringing Gandhi to this historical enterprise, which this mythical enterprise? We shall see that. Suffering became a political metaphor, a leitmotif in Gandhian theology. When Mira questioned hegemonic cultural practices prevalent within the familial and Indian social sphere. So Gandhi found in Mira a female representative of patience, sanctity, non-conformity against traditional, say, domesticity or social malpractices. So in Gandhian political theology, Mira was hailed as a satyagrahi, an ideal Indian Hindu woman, and accorded the status of a saint, and parallels were drawn between the suffering of Mira under patriarchy and the suffering of Indians under colonialism. So Gandhi could find this parallel and she fit perfectly into the women icons that Gandhi aspired to put into the political and social frontiers. So Gandhi took this comparison further, dubbed his ardent women disciples, Sarojini Naidu, Magdalene Slade, as Mirabais. Slade had left her home and privileges for for a personal quest tracing Gandhi's footsteps. Naidu had led the freedom struggle movement at various fronts under the supervision of Gandhi as a loyal compatriot, as a woman who would lead women, and emerged as a voice for women emancipation in colonial India. So you could see that the parallels are going on. The historical or mythical Mira is brought into the frontier of colonialism and presented to the public. So, the Mira presented in Gandhi's dialogues was an ideal, docile woman of high moral character. Though Mira had left her home, her society, abandoned her family ties, never produced an heir, did not consummate the marriage, did not become a sati. But in Gandhi's dialogue, she became an ideal and docile woman of moral character. She was this literary cultural hybrid who was an epitome of human suffering as well, because she suffered throughout her life in pursuit of religion. So the transgressions were erased from the narratives that Gandhi had popularized, and he weaved in his narratives of Mirabai the tenets of ahimsa, swadeshi, and satyagraha, and imagined an independent nation infused with this ideal and high morality. Let's see what Gandhi is speaking about Mirabai. Mirabai has chanted, God has bound me with yeah, I am a puppet in his hands. This is what Gandhi is writing. And if you see in the 99 volumes of Gandhian work that is available in public domain, we would see that approximately 100 to 200 statements are given on Mirabai. And every time Gandhi gets into some kind of an issue, either with religious politics or with caste issue or with any category of problem in colonial India, he would return to Mirabai, give a song, cite a bhajan, and would try to prove his point. So, in these transgressions, Gandhi makes her the tenets of ahimsa, swadeshi, and satyagraha, and tried to create an independent nation out of the examples drawn. So an instance of how Gandhi portrays Mira as a satyagrahi reflects in his frequent employment of the thread, thread as a metaphor, thread as a spiritual metaphor of higher calling for nationalist purpose. And as scholars, we know that Gandhi held this charkha all the time, started spinning for nationalist progress. So Gandhi notes, Mirabai has chanted, God has bound me with a string of yarn, I am a puppet in his hand. Or at other times, he said, I quote, Gandhi has tied me with a cotton thread, whichever way he pulls me, I am his. I am pierced by the dagger of love. This is this famous quote, famous bhajan from Mirabai. Swaraj hangs by that thread. It does not snap because the weight is that of love. This is what Gandhi is stating. So, another bhajan that appropriates Mira is Hari Tum Haro Jan Ke Bhir. That is what we saw a couple of seconds ago, which appears in Gandhi's Ashram Bhajanavali. Ashram Bhajanavali was printed in 1930, and probably most of you would know that the ashram life would begin with a prayer. It would begin with a song from the Ashram Bhajanavali, and it would also end with another prayer in the evening. And one of the prayers became fatal to him, about which we shall speak after some time. So it is this compilation of bhajans taken from various sources that were sung during the prayer meetings at Gandhi's ashram. Gandhi himself translated these bhajans into English for the sake of his ardent disciple, Magdalene Slade, whom he affectionately called Miraben. And while bhajans are a central motive in Gandhi's political theology, It is this particular version, Hari Tumharo Jan Ki Bhir. It gained worldwide popularity with M.S. Subbalakshmi's rendition of it, and gradually it established an ethic of human suffering while negotiating the question of colonial domination. So this is how the tale goes. It's not exactly a tale, rather it's a fact of Gandhi's life. So hardly 3 months would have passed after India's independence in August 1947 that Gandhi was to celebrate what would eventually become his last birthday. He had made this special request to M.S. Subbulakshmi, the Karnataki vocalist, who had risen to national fame with her performance of the life and legend of Mirabai. First in the Tamil movie Mira, that was released in 1945 and was uh, put into among the Hindi audience in 1947. This fond request was to have Subbalakshmi sing one of Mirabai's bhajans, Hari Tumharo Janki Veer, and a translation would go into Hari, you take away the suffering of the people. And this is a song epitomized inevitable suffering. And the song presents Draupadi, one of the female protagonists of Mahabharata, whom Gandhi idealized in his conversations. We shall see this particular song. Look at the translation. This is what Gandhi translated. O God, thou deliverest thy servants from difficulties. Thou savest Draupadi's honor by extending her garment infinitely. For thy devotee, thou becomest man. Thou destroyest Hiranyakashipu, didst not tolerate him. Thou savest the sinking elephant and pulled him out of the water. Says Mira, the servant and beloved of Giridhar, where there is grief, there is also this cry of distress sent to heaven. So there are multiple translations of this particular bhajan, but Gandhi translated this for Madeline Slade. Let's see what's happening in this particular song. This particular song, bhajan, is first presenting Draupadi, and Gandhi idealizes Draupadi as one of the very fine moral women in the universe. And she is in a state of predicament among other mythological characters, and Hari or Krishna would rescue each one of them. Gandhi and Subbalakshmi had met before. Her charity concerts had earned her a special reverence in Gandhi. The Hindi version of Mira, that was released in 1947, had taken the nation by storm, and Subbalakshmi was hesitant at first when Gandhi asked her to sing, record it, and send it to him. But she was hesitant at first, rather doubtful, and whether she would be in a position to do justice to the bhajan. But Gandhi insisted, and she had it recorded overnight and sent it to him air. Just a couple of months later, in 1948, the assassination of Gandhi took the world by shock and grief, and Subbalakshmi's moving rendition of this particular bhajan, Hari Tumharo Janki Bhir, it was played as a tribute to Gandhi on the All India radio. The husband of Subbalakshmi, his name was Tyagaraja Sadashivam, her husband, would recall on a later day that she was traumatized following Gandhi's assassination. And when she heard this particular song on the All India radio, and she could not sing this particular bhajan for years, for over a year. So what we see is that the three are collaborating now. In this particular bhajan, it situates the devotee or a couple of devotees on a common ground of conflict. So they are having a conflict like Hiranyakashipu, like Draupadi, like the elephant, and so on and so forth, including Mira. And the devotion of the bhakta is tested here. And there is an imminent threat to either their honor or their life, but they are all rescued by their favorite deity. So in this case, Krishna or Hari, and Haritum Haro locates Mirabai within a similar ground of conflict where her struggle as a destitute calls out for her love towards Krishna and devotion towards Krishna. So Krishna here becomes a companion god, also an ultimate survivor. So for generations of Indian women to come in Gandhian life, in Gandhi's life, Krishna would thus become a companion god who safeguards their honor and releases them from human misery. This is what struck Gandhi to a significant extent, for which he overused this religious symbolism in his day to day conversations, and also when the nation and also himself was in distress. The addition of MS Subbulakshmi here is also significant. Let's come back to the bhajan once again. Hari Tumharo Jan Ke Veer, this particular bhajan, is attributed to Mirabai, and it epitomized a kind of universal suffering when, at a time when several countries were under colonial rule. That is when Gandhi is appropriating this song. The bhajan was popularized by Gandhi during the freedom struggle movement, at the fag end of the freedom struggle movement, and he transposed the ethic of collective participation inherent in bhajans to counter human suffering. In this case, particularly colonialism, he would go back to people's home, the home frontier, make them listen to these songs through the All India radio and also through, say, the ashram bhajans, and would bring women to the social frontier. This is what our argument would be. So, right before his catastrophic assassination in 1948, Gandhi's request to sing this bhajan becomes so significant now. So by then, Lakshmi's performance as Mirabai in the Tamil rendition of the movie of the poet saint's life had brought her national recognition. She was celebrated as a living embodiment of Mirabai as well. However, so the language barrier that Subbulakshmi and Gandhi had, this also gave a kind of issue to Subbulakshmi. So the major questions that we should be asking over here would be something like this. Why did Gandhi accommodate Mirabai in many of his conversations? Hardly does he mention her leaving home, abandoning family ties and kinship. Why did Gandhi dub his women associates as Mirabais? Why did Gandhi ask Subbulakshmi to sing this particular song for him? So prior to Gandhi's request, MS Subbulakshmi had already earned fame in promoting Indian art and culture in India and abroad. She had become a name. In the Tamil rendition of the movie Mira, Subbulakshmi had played the role of the protagonist. TGS George wrote this definitive biography of MS Subbulakshmi, where he notes that it was Sadashivam whose relentless efforts brought Subbulakshmi to the notice of Indian masses. By that time, she had already acted in a few Tamil films, but a breakthrough was needed to propel Subbulakshmi's singing and acting career. And Meera, the movie, became that breakthrough. So Subbulakshmi had chosen the story herself. Ellis Duncan, who was this very famous American director, and he is said to have revolutionized Indian cinema. He was the director, with Sadashivam as the producer. So, and Kalki Krishnamurti, the poet and independence activist, she had written this screenplay. Around 20 of Mira's bhajans made it to the movie, all of which were sung by uh, Subbalakshmi herself. So the movie was a commercial success, but what was more interesting in this historical enterprise was the popular reception that Subbalakshmi had received during this period. With a powerful musical rendition of Mira, Subbalakshmi had become a living embodiment of Mira herself, and the Tamil audience witnessed a magical devotion of a North Indian saint who had crossed the linguistic borders, depicting culture and religiosity in the Indian context. So, what made Subbalakshmi a national celebrity was the Hindi remake of this movie, and this was released on the day of Diwali in 1947. So, 3 months right after India got independence. So, there was this storm in the air. So, the Hindi rendition took Subbalakshmi's image of Mirabai beyond the Tamil borders. It nationalized it to a significant extent and fetched her massive national acclaim. Sarojini Naidu, who became a Mirabai in her lifetime in Gandhian discourse, political conversation, she had given this on screen introduction to the Indian premiere of the movie. She had commented, and I would quote, "The story of Mira is the story of India, the story of Indian faith and devotion and ecstasy. Subbalakshmi's performance shows that she is not an interpreter of Mira, but Mira herself, and unquote." So this is what becoming of a poet, a singer, and also that of Gandhi. So George, the biographer, also notes how Mira was a personal triumph for MS Subbulakshmi, and that when she walked along the streets of Dwarka singing Mira bhajans, the pilgrims there, they just refused that it was a film shooting. For them, it was Mira herself. It was the disciple of Krishna. It was Mirabai reborn. So her own devotion lent her role to such a depth, and soon upon the suggestions of Rajagopalachari, C. Rajagopalachari, Subbalakshmi was asked to retire from acting career altogether, acting in movies altogether, and singing other songs because she had already become this singer saint who had left an indelible mark in the minds of the people, and both among the native people and also from personalities like Prince Philip or say S. Radhakrishnan, G.D. Birla, and Mother Teresa. So this is what is happening to the songs. So Gandhi's invocation of Subbalakshmi in the nationalist frontier and constantly associating her with Mira while reflecting the same in public sphere are seminal to understand his interactions with women in general, the marginalized population in colonial India, and the women population in general. So when Gandhi asks Subbalakshmi to sing Mirabai, she collaborates with Gandhi and Mira to join the Gandhian liberation movement on the cultural front and also on the political front. Subbalakshmi is thus encouraged to transgress her Devadasi route, and those who might not know her biography, uh, Subbalakshmi comes from this Devadasi family, but is married to, became wife, second wife to a Brahmin man. So this is to transgress the Devadasi roots and enter the cultural thresholds of Brahminism. Albeit Gandhi is said to have de-Brahminized Indian culture to a significant extent. So Sadashivan himself, a Brahmin, had transgressed his cultural traditions by accepting Subbalakshmi, a woman of the Devadasi roots, as his second wife. So it is intriguing, though, that while Subbalakshmi transforms herself into this newer Brahminical roots through marriage and becomes a vehicle of culture, her constant struggle to fit into this society, a Brahmin society, uh, there emerges this parallel public persona of Subbalakshmi, singing the bhajans of Mirabai and popularizing them. So, with Gandhi's endeavors to bring Subbalakshmi to the nationalist forefront, she too seeks an alternative route through the nation through the nation and identity, and through her identity a different kind of identity that requires more to be herself rather than being either a devdasi or a brahmin. With that, if there are questions, I shall take them, and then we shall move to the critics.
Thank you, Akshay sir, for your insightful lecture. I request all the participants to please post your questions.
Uh, Asra, we could have two things. Either we post questions or we take a 2 minute break if they require, or we can continue, take the questions at the end of our presentation.
Okay, sir.
Anything that
Uh,
they propose.
Yes, we can.
okay,
I
sir.
can
We can take a break for a while.
break for a while.
So shall we meet after 5 minutes?
Yes, sir. For sure. For sure.
This is 7:10. Let's meet at 7:16, 7:17. Before that.
Okay, sir.
Where you can post your questions.
Participants, we are taking a short break for 5 minutes. Meanwhile, please post your questions in the chat box.
Shall we begin?
Okay. Should we start now?
Yes. See if there are questions.
Yes, sir. There is a question.
Um, all right.
I'll read the question.
No, it's all right. I read it.
Okay, sir.
Yes. We shall see the questions in a very short while, but let's see how we are uh, trying to make a nation out of this very small event in Gandhi's life, and how he is trying to portray it as a very large event during the last fag end of his career. So Ashwini Tambe, one of the prominent critics, he observes that Gandhi dismantled the masculine character of anti-imperialist politics. He did that through or by mobilizing women to the nationalist home front or nationalist forefront by chiefly associating their agency with national liberation along with political representation. Gandhi went to the threshold of Indian home, brought women and people, those who were destitute, to the forefront of uh, the political liberation movement, and took them to the frontier of the anti-colonial, anti-imperialist movement. So Ashwini Tambe also states and notes that the exclusion of certain class of women, including public women, in Gandhi's nationalist ideals, for they were considered, say, immoral figures or overtly sexual figures like the prostitutes, and were termed as symbols of men's lust. Notably, Mira was also accused of promiscuity, but nowhere in Gandhi do we find a mention of Mira with such an accusation. And we would note that in the initial phase, when Mira tried to have an audience with Jiva Goswami, she was given names by Jiva Goswami as an immoral woman as well. So, such selective omission of one aspect of Mira's suffering to accommodate another aspect of her suffering, it amplifies the problematic reading of Gandhi's Mira. So, this is also an answer to the question that was put forward here. So while Gandhi argued and urged he urged Indian public women to become sannyasinis. He refused to accept any donations from them in the nation building project, even for the nation building project. This is what even Madhukeshwar puts forward, that Gandhi refused any kind of donation from public women. But if you look at Savarkar during this period, Savarkar would praise the Nach girls during this period. So Gandhi is not accepting gifts, not accepting donations from women labeled as immoral. But for Subulakshmi, who hails from a Devadasi tradition, she becomes a Devadasi turned Brahmin woman. So Gandhi developed this immense respect for Subbalakshmi and through Devdasi tradition, but only when she transgresses this Devdasi tradition, and the Devdasis were occasionally charged with temple prostitution during this period, and this is hardly found any representation in Gandhian liberal nation. So this is one of the ways by which Gandhi is accommodating, at the same time destabilizing the Indian society. So apparently Gandhi inviting MS Subbulakshmi, who comes from this Devdasi root, to sing at charity concerts, to sing at prayer meetings, this itself becomes a historical enterprise. Subbulakshmi, a woman who was critiqued for even pursuing Carnatic music, owing to her Devdasi roots, was brought to the forefront of this national struggle for freedom by Gandhi only when backed by a Brahmin husband, K. Sadashivam, who was also a political activist, was also a journalist, and was also a Gandhian liberal person. So, though Devdasis have been treated in southern India, in parts of southern India, as vehicles of culture and cultural tradition, and this history of Devdasi is not a very innocent one, just like the British or Orientalists they put forward. It's a very complicated history, and the Devdasis are also considered vehicles of cultural tradition in southern India. So colonization vehemently questioned this practice, and many wealthy and Western educated Indians they supported colonial mission of the anti-Naj movement, and the purview of which was also extended to the Devdasis and temple dancers. So if you are looking at the larger picture of what was happening, the British Orientalists and the people those who were ruling the Indian geographical terrains during this period, they had started this anti-Naj movement throughout India. They were dominating, and they had started invading their spheres, and they were sent out of the city front from the cityscape. So Suvalakshmi was no exception as well. Her social status changed when she became the second wife to a Brahmin man. Yet the conflict persisted to a significant extent. Subbulakshmi had won hearts of Indian masses with her performance in the movie and was personified as Mira in such a way that it was considered Mira incarnated. One of the Mira bhajans from the movie that also became popular, which also Gandhi sang with Subbalakshmi's rendition, was Mere to Giridhar Gopal, Dusro Na Koi, which even is sung at this point of time. And this is the song or the bhajan that Gandhi translated and included in his Ashram Bhajanavali. So these instances of cultural resistance against colonial powers installed upon, say, daily or receptive bhajan singing, these are evoked by Gandhi time and again. So, with bhakti internalized in daily social interactions and taking the form of Desh Seva or service of the nation, common public embraced a hybrid mirror, a nationalized mirror, a nationalist mirror, yet a meek and all enduring feminine figure. So, to go back to how we began, she had left the home frontier. She had abandoned her family ties. She had refused to commit sati. She had traveled alone. She had traveled with groups. She had traveled with subordinated communities. But this is what is being proposed by Gandhi, and she is becoming a hybrid mirror, a nationalist mirror, and becoming a feminine figure again. So with the revival of Mira in this literary and religious or political spheres, so public memory of Indian freedom struggle gained currency in later narratives. Mirabai, the individual, is metamorphosing into Mirabais, a community of destitute women during her lifetime. But this altered persona of female figure who would precisely fit into the thresholds of feminine dignity that is internalized by Gandhi. So while Gandhi is partaking with Mirabai in this spiritual odyssey by, say, appropriating her spiritual symbolism in Indian religious and political sphere, he is digressing so much from cultural footprints that Mirabai has left. So if we are to take this to a different direction altogether, then it's Devdasi roots became acceptable only when she is married to a Brahmin man and is contributing to the national or nationalist cause during the struggle for freedom in the Indian subcontinent. So her embodiment of Mira became instrumental in this enterprise as it secured her feminine ideals that Gandhi had envisioned in women. This was not the only people who were excluded from Gandhi's political interests. On the basis he within his fold was appropriated to perform certain well-defined roles in national liberation project, and then they would probably come to Gandhian political circle. So every aspect of Gandhi's activism would appear to culminate in a person's renunciation of the life that they are living as the first step toward reaching the greater goal at the expense of, say, personal suffering for the nation. So that is why we said that suffering became a leitmotif in Gandhian political theology in the beginning of this lecture. So women thus became the target public for Gandhi's political life, that is to revolutionize, to revive the national or nationalist spirit. And it is well documented that Gandhi tried to practice brahmacharya starting, say, 1906 and on 1906 onwards. And Gandhi embraced the identity of, say, an asexual person or, say, that of a brahmachari, following his spiritual and moral calling. So his associated idea with this higher purpose of personal suffering and salvation, in the process of which the nation in his moral imagination was founded, and this was founded on collective seva through personal bhakti. And for him, there could be no bhakti without service. So that is how Gandhi is proceeding with the project of nation or morality within the nation. So with Gandhi de-Brahminizing and de-intellectualizing Indian language, destabilizing, say, hegemonic social relations, Subbalakshmi is accommodated into that space of self-sufficiency where her transgression is equated to that of the chaste Mira. The Mira who is chaste, the Mira who is moral, the Mira who has suffered against patriarchy, and that is equated with Indians against colonialism. So both Subbalakshmi and Mirabai are thus becoming satyagrahis in Gandhian political nation, and who, as per this popular belief of the Bhakti tradition, they remain unaffected by both praise and blame, a characteristic that Gandhi sought to achieve among his satyagrahis, and this comes from his religious ideas of Vaishnavism and is developed from the times he was counseled by his mother. So, Gandhi's mother, when he counseled him throughout his childhood, that becomes part of Gandhi's all cultural ideas. And Gandhi's mother had told him that a saint will not be affected by both praise and blame. And this is the characteristic Gandhi sought among his satyagrahis. This is what he aspired to receive in the saints under question, Mirabai, or the living Mirabais, say MS Subbulakshmi. This is what we saw a couple of minutes ago when we were showing Ashish Nandi. Ashish Nandi would state in his most popular essay, Final Encounter, the politics of assassination of Gandhi. This is what we saw a couple of minutes ago when we were seeing the critics. Ashish Nandi would suggest that Gandhi's this political philosophy, it challenged Indian traditional patriarchal system and this colonial architecture prevalent in two different ways. First, through his attempts to subvert the idea of what were considered to be center and margins of Indian society, and second, by destabilizing gender hierarchies long prevalent in India as well as in colonial culture. So we shall see that Gandhi's political activism aimed at bringing the marginalized to the center of the liberation movement as a dynamic mechanism to counter the colonial project. And this also included women, this also included people from different castes, this also included whom he termed Harijans, this also included public women who tried to create a seva and leaving their professions behind. So Gandhi's intervention, this social struggle of Subbulakshmi, it becomes synonymous with the suffering of Mirabai, who was castigated by society for controversial reasons. So the first one, with a Devdasi root, and became the second wife of a Brahmin, a freedom fighter, a journalist, whereas the second one, she discarded her Kshatriya identity for ardent spiritual pursuits, and she was rejected by her own community, the Rajput community in this particular instance. So consequently, Subbulakshmi evolves as a political icon for this socio-cultural emancipation project that Gandhi aspired to create and hold. The same way Gandhi canonizes Mira as a poet saint for women's liberation from, say, patriarchal household. Sudhir Kakkar would remind us in his book Mad and Divine that Gandhi's spiritual style is unique insofar as Gandhi outlined a vision of spiritual life that does not seek to renounce the world, but to change it, but to transgress it. And he would maintain that this spiritual practice does not ignore the green or tribulations of everyday life, but it informs it. So the Gandhi, Mirabai, Subbulakshmi, this forms a rhetoric of conceptual spiritual energy, where the woman figure, first castigated by her own society and then accommodated, she comes to the forefront of the new socio-political movement. Immense popularity as a cultural icon among the masses resembles that of Miras. And in the field of music, particularly Carnatic music, the customary social and patriarchal norms would not accommodate a woman with a social baggage like that of Subbulakshmi's. But this devotion that she practiced, this relentless devotion toward art, provides her with this platform where she transgresses the prevalent said norms in pursuit of her heart, in pursuit of her art, and that is how she is accommodated at the end of the story. So Mirabai had thus shunned the contemporary norms of a Rajput family in her bhakti toward Krishna. So Gandhi was intrigued. A parallel could be drawn between the history and the lived life experience of both these satyagrahis. And Gandhi's strategy eventually, Subbulakshmi became a Mira incarnated. So that's the central argument that we are holding. So Subbulakshmi continued to support the cause when Gandhi and Rajagopalachari approached her to perform in benefit concerts in order to, say, raise money for the Kasturba Memorial Trust. She sang in 1944, which she also gladly accepted and started helping them. It established a happy nexus between Subbulakshmi and the mainstream nationalistic life. So this, in fact, comes at a time when setbacks and wrong turnings are numerous in Gandhi's personal and political life as well. So close to 1944, it was the time, it was when the nation that he sought to create as an independent nation with, say, the term that he used was Ramarajya, with a community of life of religious harmony, it was sure to be divided. So the future of a united India did not exist anymore. The state of spiritual torment also tore apart Gandhi during this period. And further, in his ideal nation that he proposed to create, the question of women's emancipation held comparatively less importance than other social issues such as the caste divides, the religious intolerance, the religious divide. This shook the political and public image of the Mahatma. So, how did Gandhi try to create a nation thereafter? In this predicament, Gandhi tries to emulate Mira once again, or to say he equates his own struggle with that of Mirabai. Uh, you would come across a book by Parita Mukta called The Community Life of Mirabai, where Parita quotes Gandhi. Gandhi states, and I quote, have you forgotten Mirabai was at death's door because of her valiant continuance of your experiment in spite of being death pale. In spite of my having almost fallen prostrate with nakedness. This is what Gandhi is trying to remember and remembering that of Mirabai. So further, when the world witnessed Second World War, violence, terror, destruction, Gandhi writes that, like Mirabai, I meaning Gandhi, too am pierced with the dagger of love, the first poem that we showed you. In another instance, Gandhi addresses a gathering at a prayer meeting in New Delhi, say in November 1947. When India and Pakistan undergo this trauma of partition, there is self-assurance, and Gandhi writes, if we too become servants of God alone like Mirabai, all our troubles would be over. So that is one personality that Gandhi would return again and again throughout his both cultural and political figure. So the volatile effort to confront the battle against violence, injustice, suppression, and say discrimination, both outside himself and within himself, It only adds to his existing predicament. Failing to achieve his ideal utopian nation that he termed as Ramarajya, he finds rehabilitation in Meera and her bhajans and in the prayer meetings. So, another paradoxical aspect of Gandhi emulating Meera as a woman of flesh and blood, it presents how Gandhi is lenient with his masculinity when he tries to infuse Mira's ideal feminine qualities, such as meekness, her docility, her submissiveness, her purity, piety, within himself and others. So then he is trying to create the historical or cultural Mirabai into a pious woman who is meek, docile, submissive, pure. So Gandhi calls Mira saintly, hardly evokes the defiance, and labels her as a model wife, though she had already left home. And there I quote from Gandhi: she bore with quiet dignity all the injuries to bend her husband, her to husband's will, and she is becoming a pious woman following her husband's will. So it is the same process through which the hegemonic structure of patriarchy is restored in Gandhi. I quote again, Mira said that she paid no heed to what the world said, since she had not left her husband, but only wished to discover the true meaning of devotion to her husband. So Gandhi is trying to create a Mira who has not left her home, rather she is creating a home. She has not left her husband, rather she is in devotion to one's husband and is trying to discover herself in her flee from home. This is what Gandhi is proposing. So Gandhi's inability to liberate Mira from this patriarchal architecture, this has to be contextualized within the framework of the presence of a male god in Mira's devotional scholarship as well. Kumkum Sarangi would state that this devotion toward the husband among Rajput women, the wife also takes a relation of generalized subalternity. That is what Kumkum Sarangi is proposing. So Mirabai, who rejected her earthly husband and refused to commit sati, is far from being an ideal Rajput Pativrata in actuality, but her dramatic end in most narratives where she merges into the idol of Krishna. It symbolizes her physical and spiritual communion with the male deity, the eternal husband she aspired to submit herself to. Gandhi takes it a step further. She submits to her husband in Gandhian literary circle. So, Mira is thus patronized. She becomes a sati in Gandhi, and by becoming one with her husband God, she achieves the title of a pativrata. So similarly, in Gandhian narrative, the hegemonic gender hierarchy is restored. Gandhi, while reviving a submissive yet resistant Mira, tries to restore this social order that Mira disintegrated with her resistance. He preaches love, devotion, service for a noble cause, and Mira's bhajans become means to that end. But the historical Mira that we see, that we read in hagiographies, would be far, far away from Gandhian archive. So Gandhi's reconstruction of Mira, it contradicts the actual Mira portrayed in different Bhakti texts. She is a literary cultural hybrid that circulated in his imagination and is canonized as a poet saint for women's participation in the freedom struggle movement. This process, this canonization, it becomes Gandhi's strategy to negotiate public portrayal of emancipated women in the anti-colonial project, in the anti-colonial movement. The hagiograph is positing that Mira abandoned her family name, family ties, social decorum, the modesty of a widow, and was charged promiscuity by her own community. It becomes thus crucial to understand the level of harlotry introduced in Mira and Mira's narratives. One of the songs would go like, what do I care words of the world? The name of the dark Lord has entered my heart. Those who praise, those who blame, those who say I am crazy, wicked, and uncontrolled. This is what would be a bhajan from uh, Mira. So Mira, as a bhakta, she struggles to move beyond praise and blame. In most of the times, she says that I do not care for the world. But within that language, it seems she does care for the world. However, in public domain, Parita Mukta would contest, saying that the name Mira for long has been a term of abuse leveled at women in Rajasthan as a charge of promiscuity. Though slowly after independence and after speaking and singing Mira bhajans for long, the term has come back to public imagination, not just as a term of abuse, but also as a term that is moral at this point of time. So Mira sings incessantly, and though at some point she seeks to gain solace in the divine, she eventually frees herself from both praise and blame. The second song that we saw, second bhajan, I have stripped off shame and family custom to go to the bed with the dark one. That indicates this particular argument. So Mira's bhajans present a context where she is castigated, and it is this idea of non-cooperation that brings in the metaphor of suffering in Gandhi. So, in Gandhian narrative, the idea of this non-cooperation is a weapon against colonial practices and served as the basis of suffering. In its ideal form, suffering here is thus used as empowerment of the marginalized, since in their self-interest, they would avoid violence of all means. So finally, there is this reconciliation between the oppressor and the oppressed, both in Mira's narrative, Mira in the colonial struggle, suggesting that what pedagogy of the oppressed would propose. The not only dehumanizes the oppressed, but it also dehumanizes the oppressor to a significant extent. This is what Paul Ferrer would say in Pedagogy of the Oppressed. So while the subordinated communities, they accommodate Mira and her bhajans, and this is spoken by Parita Mukta in his Community Life of Mirabai, the book, they also internalize her suffering. Their devotion becomes stronger when they come out of the home front, like Mira, and gather to sing. And apparently, while Gandhi forms a docile Mira who is loyal, it is the loyalty and commitment towards the divine that Gandhi seeks in Mira, who in times of conflicts would sing, the town thinks I am loose, but I am faithful to the dark one. So on the one hand, as a bhakta, she renounces her social status and remains unaffected by the judgments of the world. And on the other, her human consciousness, which is conditioned with social conventions. It moves her to rethink the socially imposed shame she spurns and rejects to uphold. And the conflict continues in her bhajans as well. So although Mira tries to renounce every tradition that holds her back, Gandhi brings back everything that holds her back. It becomes evident that in her compositions, she is also affected by it. So what Gandhi desired in a proper bhakta or the saint, that the person would not be affected by both praise and blame, it somehow does not achieve either in Mira narrative or in Subbalakshmi's narrative or in the political theology that Gandhi sought to create. So her own clan, the clan where Mirabai belongs, the Rajput clan, it accuses her of immorality. It castigates her, but it's the marginalized populace who domesticate her virgins, remain sympathetic to her, and sing and compose the next line of bhajans. So Mira's suffering transgresses this social code through her bhajans, and she is in turn idealized by her marginalized counterpart. Her perceived harlotry, though symbolic in Gandhian political theology, it is subsumed by her afflictions, and like a true bhakta who sees divine in almost everything, even in a stone. So she achieves a different kind of life altogether. She becomes indifferent to then both praise and scorn alike. So Gandhi's mirror is evocative of this mental capacity of denunciation of any praise, which Gandhi would equate with the cherished qualities of a true satyagrahi. And he would seek to train the Indian populace with an equal resilience at the face of suffering, while fighting for the nation, its defining morals and its freedom. So Mira here thus becomes a model, not just a model wife, but a model woman, on which this self-cultivation of moral of the Indian nation would stand. The objective of nationalist revival of Mira and domesticating her bhajans was to bring women and the marginalized populace to the forefront of this political activism that Gandhi is creating, as Gandhi believed that the potential Indian womanhood was buried under ignorance, superstition, and domestic slavery, and it was necessary to revive it for the cause of the nation. So while the attempts are all clear, we would see several transgressions which are influenced by his own mother and the teachings that Gandhi received starting his childhood. So there are instances where Gandhi implores the Indian populace to educate their daughters so that they can match the ideal of Mirabai. Bhakti here would become a means for Gandhi to reach the Indian masses. And spirituality is equated with truth. Truth is thus equated with nation. And Gandhi's clarion call for women of women's participation, of women's emancipation, the resistance, it transcends time and space, echoes in the contemporary cultural discourse. And there are communities of women who, even at this point of time, gathered to sing Mira's bhajans at temples and dance on the streets. And this act of transgression is validated in or say Hindu religious practices, since Mirabai's life has been viewed as a microcosm of emancipation. So whether or not Gandhi actually was in a position to historicize Mira, her life, her character, a couple of very significant things happen in this historical scholarship. Let's summarize a few points here. Uh, we would summarize that bhajans are living voices. They are to a significant extent timeless, just like our epics, just like our the big or great tradition or the quote unquote great literatures. And they are also constantly moving. A.K. Ramanujan would tell us that we have this potential to contemporize this past. So they thrive on daily enactments of, say, performed bhakti, intricately embedded within the social fabric of Indian culture. So women and destitutes who are given to public charity, they embrace the life and suffering and embrace the life of Mira, and you would be in a position to see them living in places like Varnas. So these living mirrors, they perpetuate a legacy that resists oppressive social traditions and cultural hegemony. So the personal tale of a woman's bhakti and the suffering is thus nationalized and to a significant extent universalized in Gandhian political and cultural theology. So let's find the last sorts of questions. How did Gandhi evoke the cause of liberated women in India? How did Gandhi appropriate female mirrors and enter the feminine space? How did the Mahatma and the living mirrors they collaborate in personal and political freedom? For that, probably we need to undertake the journey of speaking to the living mirrors on the ghats of, say, the Ganges in Vrindavan. Where can we proceed from here? Gandhian scholarship is too big, and many scholars have spoken about Gandhi, but there is also a lot of scope for future directions. Our scholars might think of which topics, would think of a Gandhi dictionary, would probably on a future day think of Gandhian solution to contemporary problems through artificial intelligence. Thank you so much. I invite questions and also comments.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. Now, there are some questions in the chat box.
There was a first question which was answered. This is probably the second one.
Yes, sir.
Gandhi praised both Meera and Draupadi as ideal women. Meera, since her childhood, was a devotee of Krishna and was almost forced to marry, while Draupadi, by her own choice, chose Arjuna as her husband and very much into her married life. In spite of that, both looked towards Krishna for help and emancipation. So, according to Gandhian views, how can these two distinguished women with different mindsets represent anti-patriarchal spirit equally? Kindly elaborate. Thank you for the this great question. Gandhi never aspired to create a who would be anti-patriarchal, who would be anti gender and so on. He is taking these instances, epics. He persona of Indian epics, say from the Mahabharata, from the Ramayana. He is taking their examples to the home front to allow people to speak it, come out of the home front, discuss about it. He's just suggesting that Draupadi had a serious struggle in her own life. Gandhi is equating that struggle, whether through gender, whether through violence, whether through caste hierarchy, whether through any other hierarchy, he's bringing that struggle to the public frontier to equate how Indians are suffering under the British rule. He's doing a similar thing in South Africa, and when he is coming to India, he's trying to create cultural icons whom people know, whom people, unlike us, people those who are uneducated, underprivileged, they would know. He's taking their story to the public life and discussing them, so that he is equating their struggle and the struggle of Indians, so that Indians would come out of the home front and participate in the anti-colonial project that he is initiating at this point of time. And at this point of time would mean his contemporary time. Thank you so much. So he's not equating, he's giving instances. He's creating a new kind of mythology. And this mythology is not always correct, but what he learned and what he read. One of the examples that I could cite is Gandhi takes the husband's name of Mirabai uh, as someone like Rana Sangha also, who is factually incorrect. His version comes from James Sturr, which is charged with factual inaccuracy. So the thing that I would like to say, whether or not Gandhi gave proper references like scholars today in our academic and scientific papers, but Gandhi did try to those instances, those examples, those causes to bring people to the social and cultural frontiers. So much.
Thank you, sir. Now we are done with the question answer. Is there any other comment or question? Participant, please post now.
This is a very wonderful lecture, Dr. Akshay. I want you to, speak to the audience about your methodology because, let me talk one or two sentences about Dr. Akshay's work. He's into archives and using archives as the source to write PhD thesis, write articles, and conduct literary analysis. So, and archives are such an important part of history. So this component that he has added to our course is very valuable. So, since there is the questions are still coming, if you could throw light on, how you do this and what is this sort of work for students who are still starting their PhD thesis and are aiming to write synopsis, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful comment. Uh, yes, our methods over here are archival in nature. If you are looking for a written language, a couple of statements that we write for a particular method in our research proposal, it would be something like a qualitative method, but we have to think through the archive. That is what I do. We categorize the materials into different parts. We pick them. We think through the archive within a direction of, say, one argument. And these arguments, they come only when we think through the archives. That is what I generally do. I was not prepared for such a methodological question, but I will certainly think more about it.
Great. So, it's like literature is a very widespread notion in 21st century, and I urge the students here to think in different terms when looking for what makes it into the making of history. It's not about the linearity of, it's not, but it is also about questioning the neatness of the choices that are offered traditionally as literature. So let's not be lethargic. We need to be a bit more meticulous in choosing literatures, and why not archives and work upon them and see the contribution of archives that exist in making of the nation, in making of the iconography of the nation, and of course carving out a discussion of history in literature or historicity in literature. So that is very, very, very valuable discussion today.
Thank you, ma'am. Our scholars would know structuralism and also post-structuralism, and we have declared the death of the author. We should also, with this, declare the death of a particular genre of literature. Move to archive for more details, particularly not just facts, rather the mythology created in the archive. Just like the archive that we presented, we have created a mythology where a person who was castigated by society is already a saint by the time we are moving to 19th, 20th century India. So the process through which we are canonizing, and the canonization that most of our students have read in John Donne, this canonization process that we are seeing over here today, it would probably certainly allow our students, our scholars, our young scholars to rethink how we are defining the term literature, whether we are broadening the concept of literature, whether or not we are declaring the death of this tradition, extending it and moving beyond the traditions that we have created also. Thank you so much.
I'm sure there are some other questions. I think some few questions are there in the WhatsApp.
I was not on WhatsApp.
Students, can you? Yes,
Wait, I'll
they will
post
ask
on the chat.
these questions. Yes,
Oh,
those who
great.
are on the group, please ask questions.
Asha, could you just post the question here? Yes, there were a couple of questions here probably. I may request a clarification, did you term Gandhi's liberal vision while characterizing his attempts towards affording women a place in his imagination of the moral nation? Uh, I would be using the term liberal to a certain extent here because Gandhian politics sought to accommodate people from different religions, people from different social orders. In that sense, I used the term Gandhian liberal politics. I did not say Gandhian liberal vision, I believe. So that's one clarification. So the other one we read. Uh, Could you please share insights on how Mirabai's defiance relates to nationalism today?
Today, you mean in 21st century, Maria, or something else, or post Gandhi? I think it post Gandhian era.
In at this point of time, say not we our children. What do Maria? Are you speaking?
You please go ahead. I think
Yes, sir. I meant how it relates to the nationalism today, like in post Gandhian era.
Nationalism today in a different we have into the current government. Let's not go to the current government and talk about nation today, not nationalism today. At this point in time, what is available to children? How did we know of Mirabai? What do you know of the name and the works of Mirabai? If you are still in a position to log on to the audio, or you still belong to that era, yes, bhajans are played and Gandhian bhajans are played at least 2 times a year. If you are a fan of classics, Indian classics, Tamil classics, yes, these movies are available on public domain. If you are a bhajan singer or listener, yes, they are available on YouTube. They were available on cassettes, CDs, and now part of it goes in the short video circle also if you get tuned to such feed. Our children, they learn of Mirabai in a couple of instances only. Those who were into, say, Kendriya Vidyalaya, those who are into, say, the Rajasthan or Hindi medium schools, 1 or 2 poems or bhajans by Mirabai are documented. At this point of time, scholars are actually inquiring whether Mira composed those songs and bhajans or not. And scholars are suggesting that she composed only 3 songs, while Parshuram Chaturvedi and others have given multiple songs in the name of Mirabai. At this point of time, a community of women, they live in Varanasi. They take the name of Miramai. They do not sing Mirabai's bhajans chiefly. They have shifted from Mirabai bhajans to different other kinds of bhajans, and there are bhajanics in Gujarat and UP. In addition, the Amar Chitrakatha editions also had a very uh, good episode on Mirabai, which is available to children till date. I don't know how many parents are buying those books or not, but they are still in circulation. You can order them through, say, Amazon or any other website. They are available today. So, yes and no. Mirabai's defiance is completely sidelined. She has become a woman whose bravery is spoken, but it has been normalized to a significant extent, and she has become a saint. But as scholars, you should read a 16th or 17th century woman leaving her family frontier, traveling, singing, dancing on public street, how she could have been possibly behaved by society. And as scholars of English literature studies, we should make meaning out of those travels, those bhajans, those songs, if we can catch hold of them. Thank you. Any other question?
Yes, there are a couple of more questions in the chat box.
Ma'am, I will not take your question. You have asked a difficult question. How is this kind of understanding of the nation helpful in approaching the understanding of the nation which we see in social media, etc., where moralizing is so rampant? Ma'am, is this your question?
No, this is not my question. I have copied it.
I thought you were asking me a question. In that case, I could have just escaped.
Yeah,
Um,
you can definitely escape. You have every right. But I think a part of it you already answered.
yes, in the previous one.
Yes.
Let's read. To what extent did Gandhi use bhajans shape the nationalist movement's moral and spiritual fabric? Yes, what we see at this point of time, if you are seeing that, uh, after partition, India sought to though embrace a kind of liberal policy, liberal comparatively against, say, our neighbors. In that case, the bhajans, the spiritual energy, it did affect the uh, political and cultural surroundings in India. It did. So I would say that it did influence, though it's not a singular event proposed by Gandhi, but it's a series of, say, preaching of cultural practices that did lead to where we are currently. Gandhi used the term Harijan for Dalits, masses far from spirituality and religion at that time. What could be his political stance on this as far as Bhakti movement is concerned? Uh, I shall not get into whether and how and why he termed uh, quote unquote Harijan.
Yes.
But let's be kind to Gandhi. Kind in the sense he had only one life. He had no weapons. The whole weapons did belong to the British, the colonists, the Orientalists. He had only one life and he could do so much. Writing itself, 99 volumes of work that we see at this point of time is a great achievement. See, our scholars are taking 5 years to write 200 pages of thesis. And that's still uh, not a very concrete one. We receive a lot of comments. So in 5 years, if our scholars in the 21st century with modern gadgets are writing 200 pages with a bibliography of 200 pages, and Gandhi in the 19th, 20th century India is writing 100 volumes of work responding to the questions by millions of people. And when he is unable to do so, he is publishing journals. Let's be kind to the man.
I would like to also say one thing here, that Gandhi is one of the very, very rare people on this planet of whose every day of life is documented after a certain juncture in his life. When he attained Mahatmahood and when he became what he was, Bapu for entire nation, and the nucleus of Indian freedom movement. From then onwards, Gandhi's every day is documented, what he did in the entire day. And this is when social media was not there, video recordings were not so simple, and other gadgets of recording were not available. It is only pen and paper that has made Gandhi's life the most documented, the most elaborately documented, meticulously documented life. And if you go to any Gandhi archives, students, you will find that it is a huge, huge collection. And it is not possible for one or two Gandhian scholars to claim that they have read everything present in those archives. The letters that he dictated entire day, the posts that he shared with people from here to there, the people around him who have written about his daily routine, like who came to visit and what did he answer and what did he eat, where did he go, how did he laugh, what was his mood, everything that is documented. And yet that person can be misunderstood.
True, true.
Even he can be misunderstood today. So think of it, that if we are not writing today, if we are not archiving today ourselves, if we are not documenting ourselves today in most elaborate manner, what future generations are going to talk about us? This is a very important thing.
Shall we conclude?
I think we can conclude. It's such a brilliant session. You must be tired, and students can take a break for 5-7 minutes before the other lecture starts. Yes, Asra, you can go ahead, and thank you, Akshay. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay sir. We truly appreciate your time and knowledge. And participants, now we are taking a short break and then we will move on to the next lecture.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.